the dead of night, a chilling wail echoes in the darkness. 3 spine-tingling tales of the vengeful Pontianak will pull you into a world where terror reigns and hope is a distant memory. Dare to watch? In a quiet town on the edge of a dense forest, whispers of a ghostly woman filled the air. People spoke in hushed tones about the Pontianak, a spirit of a woman who had died in pain and now roamed the night. One cool evening, a young man named Arif decided to walk along the lonely road that cut through the forest. He had heard the stories from his neighbors and felt a mix of fear and curiosity. The road was empty, and the moon was hidden behind thick clouds as Arif made his way carefully. Arif had walked this path many times, but that night, something was different. A cold wind brushed against his skin, and he felt an uneasy chill. Suddenly, a soft, sorrowful cry reached his ears. The sound was gentle but carried a deep sadness that made his heart race. Arif stopped and looked around, trying to find where the cry came from. In the distance, by the side of the road, he saw a pale figure dressed in white. Her long hair covered her face, and she stood silently in the gloom. Arif's legs trembled as he took a step closer. He recalled the old legend that the Pontianak was the spirit of a woman who had suffered a tragic fate. Her cry was a sign of her endless pain, and those who heard it were said to be doomed to share her sorrow. As he neared, the figure began to move slowly, her steps light but determined. Arif's heart pounded with fear, yet he could not turn away. The ghostly woman stopped and slowly raised her head. For a brief moment, Arif caught a glimpse of eyes filled with endless grief and rage. Without a word, the figure began to move toward him. Arif tried to run, but his feet felt heavy, as if the night itself held him in place. The ghost's presence grew stronger, and the soft cry turned into a mournful wail that echoed around him. In that moment, Arif realized that the legend was no mere tale. The Pontianak was real, and her sorrow was as deep as the dark night. Arif tried to speak, to ask the spirit why she haunted the lonely road, but no sound came from his trembling lips. The ghost moved closer until she was right in front of him, her face still hidden by dark hair. In her eyes, he saw a deep, unending sadness that filled the night. The Pontianak reached out a hand, and Arif felt an icy grip as if his very soul was being pulled into her despair. In that final moment, Arif's strength faded, and the road swallowed his cry for help. His fate was sealed, and the sorrowful wail of the Pontianak grew louder, marking another lost soul under the shroud of darkness. In a small village, surrounded by rice fields and tangled forests, the legend of the Pontianak was known by every resident. The people said that on nights when the sky was dark and the air was still, she roamed the village looking for those who had crossed her path. A woman named Sari lived in this village, and her heart was filled with both determination and a quiet fear. Sari had grown up listening to tales of the ghostly woman, and she never imagined that one night she would have to face the legend herself. One humid evening, as the village prepared for sleep, a strange silence fell over the land. Sari felt an unease that she could not shake. The wind was soft, and the only sound was the distant rustling of the fields. As midnight approached, a low cry drifted through the air, a cry so full of sorrow it chilled the blood. Sari's eyes widened as she peered out of her window, seeing nothing but the dark silhouettes of trees. Drawn by a mix of dread and an urge to understand, Sari ventured out into the village. The narrow streets were empty and dimly lit by the faint light of a hidden moon. At the far end of the main road, she saw a flicker of movement. A pale figure in a flowing white dress was standing near an old well. Her long hair obscured her face, but Sari felt an overwhelming sadness emanate from the figure. As Sari stepped closer, the ghostly woman turned slowly to face her. In that moment, Sari recognized the eyes of the Pontianak, eyes that held the sorrow of 100 lost souls. The spirit did not speak, but the silence between them was loud with despair. Sari tried to back away, but her feet felt as if they were rooted to the ground. The ghost reached out, her hand passing through the air as if beckoning Sari to come closer. Fear surged in Sari's heart, but she could not tear herself away. The Pontianak's presence filled the night with a heavy sorrow that pressed down on every living thing. Sari's mind raced as she wondered if she would escape the night unscathed. In the blink of an eye, the ghost advanced, and Sari felt her surroundings blur into a haze of despair. Her fate was uncertain, and the darkness of the village seemed to close in on her. Sari's struggle was brief. As the ghostly presence enveloped her, her cry was lost among the whispering winds. The village returned to its uneasy silence, and no one ever learned what became of Sari. The legend of the Pontianak grew even darker that night, a reminder that in the haunted village, hope was a fragile thing that could be snuffed out in an instant. In a quiet town near a misty river, the tale of the Pontianak was told as a warning to those who dared to stray too far from home. A young girl named Lila, curious and bold, lived in this town. Lila had always been fascinated by the old stories, though she did not truly understand the danger they warned of. One foggy evening, Lila wandered away from her family as the town began to fall silent under the dark sky. Layla walked along the riverbank, her small steps echoing in the damp air. The river flowed slowly, carrying with it the secrets of the past. As she strolled, she noticed a faint, sorrowful humming coming from the shadows. Intrigued, Lila followed the sound until she came to a small clearing near the water's edge. There, a lone figure stood beneath a drooping tree. The figure wore a long white dress that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. Her hair covered her face, and her presence exuded a deep, heart-wrenching sadness. Lila, both scared and mesmerized, took a step forward. The ghost turned slowly, and for a moment, Lila saw the hollow eyes of the Pontianak. The spirit's gaze was full of loss and despair, and it sent shivers down Lila's spine. The Pontianak did not speak. Instead, she began to move slowly toward the girl. Each step was measured, and the air grew heavier with a sense of impending doom. Layla wanted to run, but her legs would not obey. The ghost reached out as if to embrace her, and in that moment, Layla felt an icy chill spread through her body. The sorrow of the Pontianak seemed to wrap around her, pulling her into a vortex of despair. The mist thickened, and the river's gentle flow turned into a silent witness to the unfolding terror. Layla's small cry was lost in the thick fog, swallowed by the night. In the haze of that fateful evening, Layla's fate became uncertain. The Pontianak's sorrowful presence continued to loom, and the girl slowly faded into the darkness. There was no rescue or heroic escape. The night claimed Lila as it had claimed many before her, leaving nothing but a lingering sense of loss and a reminder of the curse that haunted the town. As dawn slowly breaks over a land steeped in sorrow, these three haunting tales of the Pontianak leave us with a chilling reminder that not all legends bring hope. In the shadow of her endless wail, souls are lost, and despair lingers long after the night has passed. Thank you for venturing into this realm of darkness with us. Stay cautious, for sometimes the past never truly lets go.